I want you to think about every zombie movie survivor you have ever watched. The ones who made it to the end credits, the ones who didn't, and the ones who lasted just long enough for you to think they might, and then made one specific decision at one specific moment that ended it. Now I want you to ask yourself something. Do you actually know why any of them survived? Not the surface answer, not he was strong, or she was smart, or they had a plan. The actual answer. The psychological mechanism that kept a specific person alive while the people standing next to them, often more physically capable, often better equipped, often with better plans, died in the first act. Most people don't know. Most survivors in the movies don't know. They have a story about themselves that explains it. The story is almost always wrong. I know what actually keeps people alive in these scenarios. I know because I have studied it extensively. I also know what kills them because I have, as you can possibly tell from my current condition, first-hand data on that side of the question. This is the 7 levels of zombie movie survivors, ranked not by how long they last, but by what is actually happening inside their heads while they last. Before the levels, a framework, because every other ranking system in this genre makes the same mistake. It ranks survivors by output, how many zombies they eliminated, how long they lasted, whether they reached the finale. These are measurements of result, not cause. And understanding the result without understanding the cause is exactly the kind of thinking that gets people killed. Z ranks by input, by the specific psychological trait that generated the result, because the same trait that keeps someone alive in Act 2 will kill them in Act 4 if they don't understand what it is and where it breaks down. And the trait that looks like a weakness in Act 1 turns out, consistently, to be the only thing that matters when everything else fails. 7 levels, each defined by a single psychological characteristic, each more useful to survival than the last, not because the people are better, but because their brains are operating progressively closer to what the scenario actually requires. Level 1 is the bottom. Let's start there. Every zombie movie has one, usually several. The denier is not stupid. That is the first and most important thing to understand about them. Denial is not a failure of intelligence. It is a failure of cognitive updating, specifically the brain's deep structural resistance to revising its working model of the world when incoming information contradicts it too severely and too quickly. You know this character, the neighbor who insists the people outside are just sick, the official who keeps using the word manageable, the family member who wants to wait one more day before they leave, the person who goes back to their normal routine because the alternative is too large to process while standing in a kitchen at 7 in the morning. Their behavior from the outside reads as stupidity. From the inside, it is the most psychologically comfortable option available. Accepting the reality of a zombie apocalypse in real time requires the brain to simultaneously abandon its entire model of how the world functions, accept that people it loves may be beyond saving, and commit to drastic, irreversible action on incomplete information. That is an enormous cognitive load arriving all at once. Normalcy bias, the technical term for what the denier is experiencing, is the brain's protective mechanism for deferring that load until it becomes unavoidable. The problem in a zombie apocalypse is that by the time it becomes unavoidable, the window is already closing. The denier dies in Act 1, not because they are weak, because their brain's protection mechanism was calibrated for a world that no longer exists, and they never gave it new instructions. Z was a denier for approximately 6 hours on day 1. This is why Z is talking to you right now instead of doing something more productive. Level 2 is less discussed than it should be. Because the follower doesn't look like they're failing, they look like they're surviving. The follower has cleared the first hurdle. They are not in denial. They have accepted the situation is real and they are moving, which already puts them ahead of level 1. The problem is not what they're doing, it's the mechanism driving it. The follower has accepted the cognitive load of the apocalypse and immediately outsourced it. They attach themselves to whoever in their group appears most competent, the person with the plan, the person with the weapon, the person who seems to know where they're going, and they transfer all decision-making authority to that person entirely. This is not irrational. Under acute stress, deferring to a perceived authority figure is a deeply hardwired human response. In normal social structures, it functions correctly. In a collapse scenario, it creates a specific and predictable failure mode. The follower survives exactly as long as the person they're following survives. The moment that person makes a fatal error, which every level below 5 eventually does, the follower has no framework of their own, no practiced decision-making, no independent read of the situation. They have been outsourcing all of that. When the authority figure disappears, the follower collapses downward, usually into level 1 behavior, sometimes straight into level 3. In zombie movies, the follower is the character who outlasts several more prominent survivors purely by proximity to the right person at the right time. They look like a survivor until the camera catches them alone for 30 seconds. Then you understand what they actually are. The follower's survival is borrowed, and borrowed time has terms. The reactor has cleared the first hurdle and rejected the second option. They are not in denial. They are not deferring to anyone else. They are responding, acting, deciding. From the outside, this looks like survival instinct at full activation. What it actually is, the acute stress response running without executive oversight. The reactor moves, makes decisions, takes action. Roughly 50% of those decisions are correct, which is coincidence because they are essentially random, driven by fear and immediate stimulus rather than strategy or assessment. The reactor's brain has accepted the threat and activated the response system without installing anything to manage what that system does with the activation. You know this character. They run toward the noise because someone they care about might be there. They pick up a weapon and charge when waiting would have been survivable. Their decisions are fast and emotionally coherent and frequently catastrophic. The reactor outlasts the denier and the follower significantly. Pure forward motion beats paralysis and dependency in most short-term survival scenarios. Speed has genuine value in the early window, but the reactor has a ceiling. The moment the situation requires a decision that feels wrong but is right. Stay quiet when every instinct says run. Leave someone behind when every emotion says go back. Do nothing when doing something feels urgent. The reactor fails. They cannot override the emotional signal. The signal is all they have. In zombie movies, the reactor is the character you root for loudly in Act 1 and mourn quietly in Act 2. They did everything fast and almost nothing correctly. It looked exactly like survival until the moment it looked exactly like the opposite.
Here is where the ranking gets genuinely interesting. And by interesting, Z means painful. The tactician is competent, observably, demonstrably competent. They have situational awareness. They make plans. They assess resources. They establish timelines. They think 3 steps ahead. In the first half of almost every zombie movie, the tactician is the obvious survivor. They are doing everything that the denier, the follower, and the reactor failed to do. The tactician's weakness is not what they lack, it is what they cannot release. Plans. The tactician constructs a system and then defends that system past the point where the system is serving them. They become cognitively anchored to their own strategy. When circumstances change, and in a zombie apocalypse, circumstances always change, the tactician experiences that change not as new information to incorporate, but as a threat to the plan's validity that must be managed, explained, or worked around. Psychologists call this plan continuation bias, the tendency to keep executing a course of action past the point where the evidence supports continuing it, because stopping feels like a failure of the system rather than a rational response to new data. In real-world crisis documentation, this pattern is extensive. In zombie movies, it is the character who insists on the original route when the original route is clearly compromised. Who holds the fortified position one day longer than the position can hold? Who gives the answer to the question before they finish hearing it? Because they already ran this scenario, and they already know. The tactician is often the most useful person in the group for the longest stretch of time. That's what makes their failure so instructive. They die not despite their competence, but almost because of it, because their brain has learned that good planning produces good outcomes and cannot easily update to the scenario where the plan itself has become the liability. Level 4 is the hardest level to watch, because you can see exactly what the tactician needs to do, and so can they, right up until they don't. The adapter is what the tactician would be if you remove the attachment to being right about the plan. Same situational awareness, same capacity for strategy,
But where the tactician defends their model of the situation, the adapter updates it, continuously, in real time, without ego investment in what they thought before. This is the psychological trait that most consistently appears in documented, real-world accounts of survival. Not strength, not gear, not prior planning. The speed and accuracy with which a person can revise their working model of the situation as new information arrives, and act on the revision without needing to resolve the discomfort of having been wrong. In zombie movies, the adapter is frequently the character who was not supposed to make it, who looked soft in Act 1, who didn't have the plan, who kept making calls that appeared wrong in the moment and turned out to be correct. Not because they were lucky, because they were reading the actual situation rather than the situation they had expected or planned for. The adapter's weakness, when they have one, is almost always relational. The cognitive flexibility that makes them excellent at updating their model of the physical environment does not always extend to their model of the people around them. Attachment to specific individuals functions as a blind spot, the one place where the adapter stops adapting and starts reacting like a level 3. They make it to the final act, and then sometimes they go back for someone. And sometimes that works, and sometimes that is the movie.
The difference between level 5 and level 6 is a single dimension of time. The adapter is excellent at now. They read the present situation with precision and update their response in real time. This is genuinely rare and genuinely valuable. The calculator does that and runs the model forward. They are not just responding to what is happening, they are anticipating what happens next, 2 steps ahead, sometimes 3, and pre-positioning for those scenarios before they arrive. Where the adapter processes the present faster than anyone else, the calculator processes the present and extrapolates the near future simultaneously. In practice, this looks like prescience. The calculator seems to know things are going to go wrong before they go wrong. They seem to make decisions that don't make sense in the moment and become obviously correct an hour later. This is not intuition. It is systematic forward projection, running the scenario variables out ahead and identifying which future states are most probable. The calculator's weakness is the inverse of their strength. They can become so focused on the projected future that they miss a present tense threat that wasn't in their model, the variable they didn't anticipate. The person who did something the calculator assessed as irrational and therefore didn't project for, because the calculator's model is built on rational actor assumptions, and not everyone in a zombie apocalypse is operating rationally. Level 6 survivors make it very far. They die when they die because something genuinely unpredictable happened, which in a zombie apocalypse is less rare than the calculator's model assumes. There is a 7th level. It appears in perhaps 1 in 10 zombie movies. When it appears, it is uncomfortable to watch in a specific way that is difficult to name immediately. The anomaly is not a better version of the calculator. They are not a more extreme version of any of the levels below them. They are a different thing. What separates the anomaly from every other level is not a skill they have. It is an anchor they don't have. The denier is anchored to their pre-collapse worldview. The follower is anchored to another person's decision-making. The reactor is anchored to their emotional state. The tactician is anchored to their plan. The adapter is anchored to their attachments. The calculator is anchored to their model's assumptions. The anomaly appears to be anchored to nothing. They move through the scenario with a frictionless pragmatism that the other characters find profoundly unsettling, because from the outside, it reads as not caring. Not caring whether the plan works. Not caring about the outcome. Not caring at the limit about whether they themselves make it. That appearance is somewhat misleading. The anomaly is not empty. The emotional signal exists. It simply does not run the decision. The gap between feeling something and acting on it, which in the other 6 levels ranges from thin to non-existent, is in the anomaly wide enough to drive decisions through. In practice, this manifests as the character who makes the call that no one else in the group can make, who walks away from a situation that would paralyze every other level, who processes the same information as everyone else
and reaches a conclusion faster because they are not filtering it through a narrative about what should be true or what the cost of being right would mean. Z has studied the anomaly carefully, has some specific thoughts about whether the trait is learnable or whether it requires losing something that most people are better off keeping. The short version? The anomaly is not the goal. They are a data point. Understanding the specific mechanisms that free them from each anchor and identifying which of those mechanisms you can approximate without becoming the thing they are, that is the goal. The anomaly survives. That part is not complicated. What they survive as is a different and longer conversation.
Here's the question everyone watching is holding right now. Which level am I? Here's the honest answer. The question is almost certainly wrong. These are not fixed personality types. They are cognitive modes, patterns of processing that activate under specific conditions of stress and threat. Most people contain elements of all 7. The relevant question is not which level you are. It is which level your brain defaults to when the acute stress response activates and rational oversight goes partially offline, and whether you have thought about that default before the moment it matters. The denier is not incapable of updating. They need pre-committed action triggers that don't require completing the update in real time. Set the condition before the scenario arrives. When X happens, I do Y. No deliberation required at the moment of activation. The follower is not incapable of independent decision-making. They need practice making decisions under uncertainty before the stakes are terminal. The mechanism exists. It's just atrophied from disuse. The reactor does not need to stop feeling. They need one practiced pause between stimulus and response, a single breath of executive function. That is not a large gap to build, but it has to be built before the moment requires it. The tactician needs one item added to every plan, a scheduled point at which they evaluate whether the plan still applies to the situation that currently exists, rather than the situation it was built for. The adapter is close. The adapter needs to know where their blind spot is before it activates. Name the person or people who would override your cognition. Then plan for that override specifically, the way you would plan for any other known threat. The calculator needs one adjustment to the model, a standing input that humans under extreme stress do not behave rationally, and that irrational behavior is therefore not unpredictable. It is predictably irrational in documented ways. Build that into the projection. And the anomaly? The anomaly is probably not watching this video. They already know. The mind fails first, in every level, in every movie, in every documented real-world scenario where someone who should have made it didn't. The question is not whether your mind fails. The question is which specific way it fails, and whether you mapped that before the scenario activated. Z mapped it after. There is a difference. The difference is the channel. Subscribe, because each one of these levels gets its own video, in significantly more detail, and because most of you just quietly identified which level you are and would rather Z not say it out loud. Z respects that.